Welcome to the 96th broadcast of the t-roh Show. This is your host, Keith. I've got a guest, be Lola, and I've got John and John here. So, John. And we're going to be discussing a few things today that you really might want to listen to because we're going to go right down into the courtrooms. We've got a little bit of evidence that everyone needs to see. But first, we're going to cover what we covered last week, and we just wanted to just go a little bit further with it just for a second, just so everybody can see what's going on. Remember this right here? Who turned the stars upside down? Okay, there's another guy that came in and he started saying, well, there was upside down stars everywhere else in a couple of places and blah, 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 blah. It didn't really matter why they were trying to explain it, but actually what he was doing was he was exposing the Illuminati throughout the years. The different illuminists and satanic worshipers throughout the years that were running for president. He doesn't realize that's what he's doing, but that's what he was doing. An upside down star is an upside down star. Whether anybody likes it or not, it's an upside down star. Is everybody seeing this page here with all the different buttons and everything? John?
Yeah, we're seeing them fine. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, just making sure, because sometimes when I switch, it doesn't come through. They even have Trump on there and everything else. But what we did not cover, okay, if I go back over here, let me know if it's not, or you just have your
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What this actually means is a three city-state empire. That's you've got Vatican City, City of London, which is not London that everybody sees. That's where Rothschild is. City of London would be lowercase c, City of London. It's different from London that you normally see on television. And then you've got the City of Washington, D.C. If you don't believe me, you can go over to the City of Washington, D.C. and look at their flag. Same thing. There's three stars there. And what we're doing here, if you look at this one, there was a 3 stars here, but they also had like a 4th star on it, I think. If I go back over here, if I can go find it. So I don't want to make everybody dizzy. There was 4 stars on the Democratic Party donkey. So if we can find that, I was wondering what that 4 star meant and what it actually represented, whether it was the Federal Reserve or Jekyll Island or something. There's got to be a reason for it. So I was wondering if anybody out there may even know or have done any research on it. It kind of save us some time looking into it.
Yeah, it wasn't 4 stars on the one that was reared up.
Right.
On the donkey, it was.
There it is.
Yeah.
On his, he had 4 stars. I don't know what that 4 star meant.
Yeah.
But either way, they're not talking about the states of the union. Okay, most of these people are thinking that they're working for your best interest, and we're going to show you today that they're actually not. That they're a union of folks that basically work for the 3 city-state empire. That would be Rothschild, would be the City of London, and then the Vatican City, and City of Washington, D.C., which is a city-state. They're independent city-states within countries. So at any rate, let's move on. We're going to show you. I'll go ahead and shut this down. And I'll show you a video. So I'll stop it in the middle of where it needs to stop. Let me do a share screen and share computer sound. Be much better. All right, let me know if you can hear this.
They'll find you in contempt and throw you in jail.
I would appreciate it if you.
Can you all hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear good.
Hear it fine.
That ain't a threat. They'll find you in contempt and throw you in jail.
I would appreciate it if you wouldn't threaten again.
That ain't a threat.
Now, we went over this previously.
Okay, did you see that I know. Just hold up, Lola. I know this is gonna make you mad. So we'll just because you were there, and but this look in his face. Just watch this look. He's look. Watch the attitude, because what he's doing is he's acting like he's talking to somebody's son, like he's 10 years old. Okay, just showing you the attitude.
Jail.
I would appreciate if you wouldn't threaten me again.
That ain't a threat.
Now watch this. See that?
Now, we went over this previously.
I am not going to accept anything about your national origin. You are.
Boom. I'm not going to accept anything about your national origin. So what did he do, folks? Here we go. I'm not going to accept anything about your national origin. And basically, they weren't talking about a national origin. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Does everybody see this? Everyone has a right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Nor denied the right to change his nationality. Okay? Now, let's hear what he said again.
I am not going to accept anything about your national origin.
There you go. See, he's making fun of it. This is a man who's been in law enforcement for a long time. He's making fun of somebody claiming a nationality. He's gaslighting them, trying to make them feel small, little. He doesn't want nationalities. That's why he's in this black Luciferian dress he's got here, okay?
You are in the United States.
He says he's in the United States.
You're in Lynn County.
You're in Lynn County.
You're in the city of Lacey.
You're in the city of Lacey. Notice he skipped what? The state of Kansas. He skipped the state of Kansas.
United States. You're in Lynn County. You're in the city of Lacey.
Do y'all hear that?
Yep.
He completely skipped the state, folks.
Wow, he lost his whole state.
That's right. Now let's go back and let's define what the man said. Because he's the one that skipped it. I didn't. So what we'll do here, okay, here's the United States. This is the Bank of New York Mellon. This is the United States right here. That literally is the United States. Okay? How do I know that? This is their address. What other address in the country uses the term United States in the address? No one does. Don't believe me? Let's call or write the White House. See any United States here? There's no United States in the address. The District of Columbia is the territory of the United States. It didn't say it was the United States. We've gone through that in an earlier t-roh show. Okay? So just get it, if you can get it in your head, that when they talk about the United States, they're talking about the Bank of New York Mellon. This is on Manhattan Island. Manhattan Island basically is Manhattan Island is its own nation, which a lot of people don't understand. They don't know that. U.S. citizens don't know that. Everybody else in the world does. But U.S. citizens don't know that. So when they say that you're a citizen of the United States, you're a citizen of the Bank of New York Mellon. He skipped the state, went to Lynn County, then right to his municipal charter. So his municipal charter is directly connected to the Bank of New York Mellon. The Kansas Supreme Court reaffirmed in 2004 that the cities have broad home rule powers granted directly by the people of the state of Kansas. Okay, let's look up the people of the state of Kansas. So let's go over to their constitution. Whereas the government of the United States is proprietor, blah, blah, blah. Whereas the state of Kansas, well, that's a lowercase s state. That's a completely different state. How did that happen? Here's the preamble. Same difference. State of Kansas. So which is
I
it?
think they call that usurpation.
They call it what?
They call it a usurpation.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody changed their name for some other purpose.
Right, and this is the Kansas legislature briefing, and this was put out in 2015. So somebody knew what they were doing. And where was that? We'll give you a little background in this case here in just a little while. Okay. Okay, let's go look at the original Constitution of the state of Kansas. It says the same thing. So how did this one, state of Kansas, how did this this Constitution end up in the state of Kansas? And it was done in 1980. I don't get that. It was also done in 1972. Does anybody remember amending this Constitution? Anybody remember having a vote? Don't they have to have 3/4 of a vote or at least over 50% to amend a state constitution?
I thought they did.
Yeah, and don't, I mean, isn't it illegal by the law of nations to change the name of the state? I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it is too.
This was the,
I believe that was covered in chapter 12, wasn't it?
yeah.
Law of Nations. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so they made a state within a state. This is called a creature state. This is what we keep telling people. Okay, but he changed that. So it goes from, he's talking about the Bank of New York Mellon directly to Lynn County, which is, they brought in a new charter and then created a municipality, which is a creature of the lowercase s state of Kansas. Now, when you do that, you bypass, I'd say Bill of Rights, you bypass the state constitution, you bypass all state constitutional officers that are elected, and then you hijack them from the state treasury, the original state treasury. So they're not actually getting paid by the original state treasury. They're just moonlighting for private municipalities working for the Bank of New York Mellon. Here's their address. So let's go back to the Pillsbury Doughboy here and listen to how smart and wise he is.
And the charge against you occurred in the city of Lacey,
Sir,
which the U.S. government and the state of Kansas gives me the right to hear the cases before this court.
All of a sudden now the U.S. government and the state of Kansas gives him rights. That would be wonderful if you were inside the state of Kansas, but you're not. You're under a municipal charter that is outside the state of Kansas and is called a creature of state.
I don't care what that says. I'm telling you what the U.S. Supreme Court says.
The U.S. Supreme Court has no obligation or jurisdiction over anything.
Well, that's
You've
your
proven
opinion.
that. You don't even.
He's right. The U.S. Supreme Court does not have any jurisdiction outside of the state or outside of the District of Columbia.
Yeah, he caught his misleading inferences to other things there, but he knew that one right off, and he caught it.
He quit, didn't he, real quick? Okay,
He caught that, but doesn't like that.
we're going to give you a little bit more information. This guy's name is Claude Warren. Okay, he was the chief of police of Osborne, and he was a coroner. Okay, of Lynn County. And he used to go to the University of Kansas, and he's been in law enforcement most of his life, and somehow got appointed as a municipal judge. I don't know how he got appointed there, but that's what he did. So Lola, he was in there. Okay, so this is Jeffrey, right? This is Jeffrey Thompson. You're his mother. You were in this courtroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So they, as far as I understand it, this was on a DUI case. Okay, we've read all of the paperwork.
Yes.
We've read
Yes.
we've read all of the affidavits, and this case that this guy is talking about, meaning Mr. Warren was talking about, was already dismissed in a district court.
It was dismissed in the county. The incident happened in the city, and they, for some reason, handed it over to the county. He never went before the county. The county decided they didn't. He gave them paperwork that you had him do, and the county decided they didn't want it, and they sent it back to the city.
Right,
So
and that was the paperwork or the motions that we put in, basically stating that they never had the intangible property right, so therefore there couldn't be a license. So the county district court goes ahead and dismisses it, correct?
that's correct.
Okay, and we said
With
this is,
prejudice.
yeah, this is okay. The whole with prejudice and without prejudice, that's called a lawyer's trick to get around double jeopardy. Because remember,
Right.
they're not under any constitution. They're not under any state constitution. They're not under anything. They're directly working because the municipalities, which were creatures of the state, by the way, work directly for the Bank of New York Mellon. And so the bonds that you got to remember, municipalities issue bonds that go on the securities market in the Bank of New York Mellon's Wall Street. That's or I'm sorry, stock market. Okay, so just so everybody knows of how this actually operates. Okay, so this is, and he was going back basically stating, and he's already, hold on a second, Lila, I'm gonna have to mute you out there. He also had an issue with chickens in the backyard. The municipality was trying to get him to get a permit for, I think it was 4 or 5 chickens that we saw. And he'd put this huge fence up and everything. He just wanted some eggs. That's all the guy wanted. But you got to understand, the Bank of New York Mellon, the way they operate is not the way, it's not a republic or any kind of thing like that. The way they operate is a dictatorship. It's a fascist system. That's how that operates. So, all right. Let's go ahead and go back. We'll listen to the rest of this Jack Witt here. Hold on.
Even have a note to the
Your Honor, do
Constitution.
you want us to present our first witness?
Okay.
Remember, this is a municipal court. This really doesn't, I'm going to show you actually how much power your municipal court has here in a minute by their lowercase s state statutes.
I object. I'd have a right to association or not associate.
That's right. He's claiming he has a right of association. Okay? Now, let's go back over to there.
I'm sure there's people that's not going to understand what the association is talking about, but I'm sure you're going to cover it. But he's talking about a private membership association. It is a legal instrument, and you are entitled to do it. And Keith will have that to show you that right now.
All right. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceably assemble in association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. So if the municipality, in other words, if Jeffrey never signed on as any kind of compact or an elector within that municipality outside of the state constitution and all that, because I'll show you what he talks about here in a minute. But if he, that's a forced association. So that the judge is actually violating his human rights under Article 20, Section 2. But then again, we're dealing with local. So you got to get it. So this is why we always say we always have trouble with local, because local leaves a lot to be desired.
There's no separation of church and state here.
In case you can't hear it, he's saying there's no separation of church and state. What he's basically mentioning is this guy has a black robe on, so that's Luciferian. They always said we don't know the origins of the black robes of the judges, because I looked at all that up. And the black robe is associated with Luciferianism. That's why priests have them.
Yeah, there is. This is not a church, this is a courtroom.
You're practicing a
He said this is not a church, this is a court. Okay, now the church, remember in Luciferianism they deal with temple. That's the term. So he said this is not a church, meaning this is not a Christian church. This is a court. See how he got around it? It's pretty slick how he did it.
religion, sir.
And I'm finding you out of order. Do you understand that?
This is all.
Do you understand that? It's a yes or no answer.
No, I don't understand that.
Well then,
Now he's screwed. Okay, anybody, any regular judge that knows what he's doing and doesn't have his head completely up his ass would say, all right, this is what we're going to do. I see your paperwork. He wouldn't even let him defend himself. Y'all realize that's a due process violation? Am I right, Johnny Rowe?
Yes, sir. You're dead right on.
Does everybody know that that's a felony, by the way? It's an international felony also. If you don't allow somebody to defend themselves. In other words, his paperwork that he had there, I'm not going to accept any of your paperwork. Well, you don't really have a choice. You have to go through the paperwork, and you have to postpone the case for 30 to 45 days if you, in fact, can't understand it and you don't know what the hell you're doing. You postpone the case for 45 days. Jeffrey ain't going anywhere. He's not going to take off on you. Everybody knows that. And because he showed up a couple of different times. This has been going on for a year and a half, guys. A year and a half over this. They've already dismissed the case. A dismissal is a dismissal. So now we're running double jeopardy here. But that doesn't apply in the municipal court because there's no such thing as a constitution there. There's no such thing as a state constitution. It's only what their charter says under the U.S., the United States, which is the Bank of New York Mellon. So we're dealing with a banker's court. This is a banker's court. This is not an actual court as provided by the district court, which would be in the county.
Right now, he's being an administrator.
Yeah, he's administering bonds and securities on behalf of the bankers in the Bank of New York Mellon. That's what's going on. And he's doing it.
Because the people there in that area allowed themselves to be trolled away from a state constitution, a county constitution, and into a foreign apparatus of a municipal constitution. They don't have the means to protect themselves sitting in that courtroom because anything you bring in that is what you've learned, your parents learned, your grandparents learned from the past about a constitution does not now apply in this court. It's not even a court, it's a private hearing. It's private.
He has already objected to he's already in this paperwork right here. He's applied for or asked for a public trial, not a private trial. Y'all get what's going on here?
Right.
Okay.
find you in contempt of court, direct contempt of court, take you to jail.
I find you in contempt of court. Are you in contempt of court? This is Kansas, guys.
I'll be getting with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation.
And what do you call these guys? T-shirt cops? I'm going to show you something here in a minute.
Yeah, but
He's in contempt for trying to put his paperwork in. You'll get that? He's trying to defend himself with what he has, and he's basically saying that I'm not a part of your religion. You're trying to force association and force me under your religion. You're trying to force me into a private court and under an association that I'm not even a part of. And you're denying me a nationality. Now,
That's some pretty serious stuff there, man.
those are very serious human rights violations. Now, look at Gestapo back here. Look at Doofus with the frickin' flak jacket on. He doesn't need a flak jacket, folks.
Yeah, well, they don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah, look how young he is, too. Total doofus. All right?
Yeah, they're not taught this stuff. They don't know this stuff. They just throw them to the wolves when they hire them as cops and throw them out there.
Yeah, he has no idea that he's now, these two are conspiring to violate 3 of the most fundamental human rights on the planet, of which every country in the world has adopted, pretty much, except for maybe Korea, North Korea. Maybe China. Okay, so these guys are conspiring to violate human rights. That's how this works. And they're listening to Pillsbury Doughboy over here that wants to show everybody what a big badass he is. We'll give you a little idea of what he's like here in just a minute. Lola's got something about that.
notice from this court.
Okay.
Here, hey, Mr. Gestapo.
Thank you very much, sir. This is his mother's birthday. Thank you for
Well,
your
happy
gift.
birthday.
Thank you.
If he hadn't have done what he done,
You know
everything
what?
would've been
He
fine.
has some really
No,
valid
he does not have
issues.
the right in this court.
What did he do?
If he hadn't have done what he done, what did he do? He tried to put paperwork in. He tried to do due process. He tried to follow the rules of due process that basically every country understands what due process is. So what do we want to label this guy? Retard of the day?
What did he do? What did he do?
Well, either
I never.
Go ahead.
well either he's very smart or he's very dumb, because if he's trying to make money in a improper way, he's actually doing it. So he's smart in that avenue. But I would say that a normal chief of police is probably not trained to be a judge. And this right here probably proves why training is required to put on those robes. And the second problem is that the whole apparatus instrument here of this charter running has probably removed everybody's rights in that area. And normally when I see that, they've never been told. They don't even realize when they signed up for it, if they signed up for it, that they've given away their constitutional rights. That's another violation of a lot of rules and laws.
Thank you very much, sir. This is.
Remember, this case has already been dismissed. Now, here's your flag. That's the Commander-in-Chief's flag right there. I don't care what anybody says. Article 4 flag is the Commander-in-Chief's flag. So the Commander-in-Chief of the United States military protects this little bozo, okay, and this guy and Gestapo against the people. How do you get why, oh, the stock market's never been as high as it ever been in its history and blah, 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 blah. They're the only ones getting rich, folks, in this country.
Yeah, well, they're moving this guy right over into the stock market, and they'll make money on him. And he's got a PMA. He's under another foreign government that's foreign to this one. And they just took him out and put him right in their association, moved him into the stock market, and they're going to make money on him every day he sits in jail. And they'll continue to do it until they either get the money or whatever it is they're after, or they can get a conviction on him and put him in jail for a long time.
That's called international trafficking in persons.
There you go.
Because the Bank of New York Mellon uses the what do you call it? The IRS trusts in all the in the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Philippines, and a couple of other places. Okay, I can't remember right now. And there's different IRS trusts that are offshore. So this guy has gone back. Jeffrey went back to the States of the Union under oath and affirmation. He didn't want to use he didn't want to give him any due process to show that, because his whole plan was to do what? It was to
He was doing trafficking is what he's doing.
He was trafficking his person, trying to reverse everything that he had done. So what is that called, folks? That's called slavery. Y'all get it now? It's slavery. This man he believes, and that's why I said when he looked down at him and gave him this little look, "You're mine, boy. I own you, boy. You're my property, boy." That's this guy here. He's been doing this so long, he don't even remember what it's like to be a human being. I call it sociopathic. He has no empathy for anyone else. He doesn't look at Jeffrey as a human being. He looks at him as property to be transferred. Because you had a couple drinks. It's just money. They don't care about this. It's already been dismissed in the district court. When the case is dismissed, he's done.
Well, really, what he did is called a conversion in crime, where you convert somebody from one status or one thing into another thing that's usually of lesser rights or lesser money or value. So they pulled a conversion on him, and there is case law on that. I mean, but he's not under that case law really, but.
Right, because that case law deals with the state and it deals with something else completely.
Right.
Okay, and that's why he said the U.S. government gives me the right to do this. In other words, the military protects him. So the U.S. military is directly involved in this particular proceeding. I feel so safe now. All right, hold on a second.
His mother's birthday. Thank you for
Well,
your
happy
gift.
birthday.
Thank you.
If he hadn't done what he done,
You know
everything
what?
would've been
He
fine.
has some really
No,
valid
he does not have
issues.
the right in this court.
What did he
No, he does not have the right in this court. Get it?
do? What did he do? What did he do?
Ask him.
Undermine your authority?
You ask questions?
I'll be there in a minute.
What he did?
Ask me questions. Perfect.
Well, I'm just curious. Like,
So a girl here is learning in high school. Learning. Would you explain? She is asking. Ask again. What did he do?
He would not obey the court order. I told him that if he kept on, he was in contempt, and he kept arguing with me, he's in contempt, therefore, he's going to jail for...
The court order was, I told you that you have no due process rights here. And you kept on going. You kept arguing with me. You have no due process. That's what the man said. Right there. I want the rest of the world to see this.
He would not obey the court order. I told him that if he kept on, he was in contempt, and he kept arguing with me, he's in contempt, therefore, he's going to jail for...
He didn't keep arguing with him. He was bringing out certain points that needed to be brought out.
the contempt court.
This court, all these courts in the United States are called adversarial courts because you have to litigate against each other.
Next to him, it's either.
Go ahead.
I was saying that all the courts in the United States are adversarial courts because they, you know, if you're in that court, you have to do adversarial discussions with each other. And that's how the merits of the case are brought out and administrated through a court.
Right. That's a real court, right?
That's a real court. And he did nothing wrong that I can't see anything he did wrong other than he got involved with some town here that's got the wrong guy in there as a judge.
Well, I think all of them have the wrong guy in there as a judge because I've seen this. How many times do we get this?
I get it every day.
every single day, folks, in every part of the country. So when somebody,
Yes,
go ahead, Lola. Go ahead.
I have to say, and I have sat through traffic tickets because I've dug my heels in and gone to court many times, and Jeff has come to be there with me if I got a ticket, and we'll sit there for an hour and listen, and they just run them through like cattle, and it's 100% money that they're collecting off their bond. And everybody has the same treatment as this man is giving Jeff right now. No matter what you bring them, you're going to walk out and pay the fine. It's going on your bond. They're going to double dip every time.
The same guy also had
different town, different county.
Yeah, he also had added a $3 surcharge on all the fines, so he could give the money to some charity. It took him 3 years to get it through. This same Claude Warren. And then what did you say that this other woman was doing? It was a mother, about 36 or so, just before this.
Well, it wasn't tonight. I've been to most of his, because he gets to go in now and then they end up continuing it and on. But that was a young mother that night. I mean, he's literally, this is, Brandy, my daughter-in-law, said that this is the poorest county in Kansas. And my pea brain has finally figured out that their taxes are really low. So this man is sitting here, and these police officers are all in collusion as far as I'm concerned. They just sit around the town and drag people in and charge them $140, whack them here and there. And these people can't afford this down there. It's a very poor area. So they're giving him a higher tax base. This guy's raising the tax base for this area by hauling these people in. I'll bet you in this little tiny town, I bet you there's 10 to 20 people in there every week. That's a lot of money coming in for him.
Right. Didn't you say that he coerced somebody from 125 to 140?
Yeah, he asked her how much she could pay of her fine at a time per month, and she said, I think I could pay $125. And he sat there a minute and he said, you'll pay $140 the first day of the month, and if you're 1 day late, we will come and get you, have you arrested, and you'll serve out the rest of your sentence. That was, and she said, so he absolutely put it above what she said she could pay. So in other words, the chances that she probably wouldn't be able to get it paid or had to borrow money or not feed her children didn't bother him, but he was probably going to get her back in jail, which was going to bang her bond again.
Okay.
And that's it was very clear what he was doing.
All right. Mr. Warren here is in his 70s. Okay, folks, just realize that. He's in his 70s. It's the first time that he's been exposed. He's been getting away with this crap for the last 30 or 40 years. He's been a piece of shit his whole life. He's been screwing people over and stealing from them forever. Now he's exposed. If you look at the other court case, when they were appealing CPS cases, they were saying it was okay to lie. That's the American courts right now. That's the U.S. courts. All because they're under the Bank of New York Mellon. It is the worst court system in the world. That's why you have more people in jail in North America than you have all the countries in the world combined. There are more people in jail here because of guys like this. And
well, it's not his fault. It's not his fault because we have allowed ourselves in the United States to be put under socialism and under the safety and welfare system. And all it takes is one president to give an executive order and put an end to it. And that hasn't happened in, what, 25 or 40 presidents? So that ought to tell you that something's wrong if you elect 40 presidents and they won't give that one executive order that stops all this. That tells me something.
Right, because that same president in that same office is protecting the Bank of New York Mellon, which is foreign to the states of the Union, under the rule of private international law. And anybody who's been watching t-roh knows that they're foreign. So the very office itself has committed treason. For how many years? Many.
I lost count, man.
Yeah. That's treason against its own country. Because it's, now, who owns Manhattan Island? The Dutch. Who owns the Dutch? King Willem. Where did Trump go the first time when he first got in office for 2 weeks? The Netherlands. Went to talk to King Willem to find out what to do. How do you want to do this?
Well, he is flying his lion flag, so must be brothers with him or something.
Yeah. So y'all see what's going on in the country? I want this to go everywhere. If it can go to Canada, go to Mexico, hell, go to China. This is how it is every day in America. This is what we're living with every single day. So if one day people pop and just say that's it, you'll understand exactly why. It's because of guys like this. Okay? You say it isn't his fault. I absolutely disagree with that. It is his fault. He could change it, but he's not. He's a greedy little frickin' doughboy. And he's using jail to force people out of their money. That's how he's doing it. A state within a state.
There it is. And I am wrong. I did that intentionally because I knew it would stir you up there.
Because the people,
he is wrong. He's really wrong. And whoever allowed him to sit there doing what he's doing without training, somebody needs to go over and have a psych evaluation.
Yeah. Because he's a freaking whack job. This man is 70 years old. He's been doing this for a long time. And he's friggin' nuts. If he can live with himself every day with what he does to people. The only way he can do it is, I'm your slave owner and you're my slave. That mindset is the only thing that can deal with him. This is the first time he's ever been exposed. And guess what? He got exposed before he died. He's in his 70s. He needs to go home. Go to Florida and go retire. So you can live with your sorry ass self until you freaking die and rot. Okay? Because that's exactly what this guy is. He's the lowest of the low. He just committed 3 major human rights violations. And look at his face. And he looked at Jeffrey as the biggest hunk of shit on the planet. But that's called self-projection. He's projecting on Jeffrey what he is. We see this every day in CPS. Snatching, stealing children every day. We see this in every courtroom, everywhere, and we get reports all the time. Human rights violation, human rights violation, human rights violation, it's on. It's constant. We get them all day long. So hopefully this gets to
what's
England.
What's the highest amount of children that in a case now that we've had? What is it, 4 or 5 children?
Much, yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard to understand how a social worker can go into a court, lie, and take somebody's kid, and every time they have a kid in the future, Even if you go to another state, they have them taken again. All because they're just a social worker who's lying. But they're getting money. And the state they work for is getting money. Well, it's the same thing here. It's all about the money. He's feeding this little town and thinking he's really good at doing it, and what he's really doing, he's not trained and he doesn't understand. He's sitting there doing bad things that are human rights violations. Not just in the one you looked at. There's more than one human rights violation. He broke the UDHR. He's doing trafficking in person protocol under the UN. And I'm not sure if I looked at war crimes, he would probably fit under it too, maybe.
Well, he is under a military flag, and he's being protected by the commander-in-chief.
Yeah. So,
well, actually,
if you're working under emergency.
Let's put it this way. The commander-in-chief is actually protecting the Bank of New York Mellon. He just thinks that he's being protected because he joined that little crowd.
Right.
But he doesn't realize they would toss him under a bus in a heartbeat. They know he's a piece of shit. And they have no respect for him. They just use him. He's stupid enough to do it.
Legally, Keith, under that flag, the only thing he can be tried under would be war crimes.
Mm-hmm. That's true, because what is he doing? He's using a military war flag or military flag to attack civilians. That's a war crime.
And that makes that where he's sitting right there, a military court martial.
Yeah. So it's a war crime. He's attacking civilians, and the military is attacking civilians, and it's being done in 3,000 counties a day, every single day.
Yep.
I think Lola keeps getting kicked off here.
Yeah. Every 3,140 counties in the entire United States.
Right, of America. And there's 3,000. Okay, so in the entire United States, in the entire Bank of New York Mellon, there's 3,140 counties where they put their municipalities and their home rule charters in.
That's correct.
Now, folks, do you want to see evidence of trafficking admitted by the state of Kansas?
Yeah, let's look at that.
All right.
I want to see that.
Appeals from municipal courts. The defendant shall have the right to appeal to the district court of the county. Oh, really? From any judgment of a municipal court which adjudges the defendant guilty of a violation of ordinances of any municipality of Kansas, not state of Kansas, of Kansas, or any findings of contempt, right here. The appeal shall be assigned by the chief judge to a district court or district judge. The appeal shall stay the further proceedings upon the judgment appealed from. That means they switch them back to the county. That's called
Kansas. Kansas is where is Kansas? It might be located over here by Mickey Mouse Land by Disney World, maybe, because it's fictional, right?
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Okay, I just was checking to make sure I had it
just
right.
Another created state.
Yeah, it's more fiction. Yeah.
I want the whole world to see this happens every day. Olo, do you have anything to add? We're having sometimes an issue unmuting. All right, do you have anything to add? You're unmuted now.
No, I don't at the moment. We have a severe thunderstorm here, and my internet went out. I had to go to an alternative internet.
Okay.
So I've been out for a little bit while I was getting it.
No problem. But did you have anything that you wanted to add to it?
No, I don't. Listening to this says to me then, before I was thinking they gave it back to the city, but when the county let go of it, he really should have been done with it and shouldn't have even been called to go back to the city at all. And if he hadn't appeared, it should have been over, right? From what I'm understanding with you.
Well, the bankers had a bond, and they have bond they got to get interest off of. So the bankers told them, Well, we don't care what the state says. The county. Try them again.
Hmm.
So let me explain to you this in a little different way. This town municipality, when it comes to the technicalities, under a normal constitutional charter and state, this town would have to be probably unincorporated, or if it was incorporated, they probably would not be able to prosecute people in this manner. And if they did, then they would be violating rules and laws. Where this is over here now, it's in a foreign device, an instrument, and they're trying to do their business in a manner that, the way I look at it technically, is that their police powers there are probably operating in the realm of being a mercenary. And a judge cannot go over and take my PMA, destroy it, force me into his, drag me into a private hearing, because I'm entitled, if I'm not part of his stuff, I'm entitled to have a public court.
Well, keep in mind, Johnny Road, keep in mind that the state never, never, what do you call it?
Authorized it or ceded it.
Well, they never ceded public property to that charter.
That's right. So somebody took it or gave it in an unlawful manner.
Well, they're usurping property that's not theirs.
That's right. That's the way I look at it too. It's kind of like you come home one day and somebody's in your house and they say, well, you left your door unlocked. I come in and I brought all my stuff in now, and I made a challenge. Nobody answered the challenge, so I'm here. And no, I'm not leaving. And you call the cops, and the sheriff comes over and says, he tells that to the sheriff, and the sheriff says, well, there is the case laws on the laws on the book that allow him to do that. So you guys work it out. See you, bye.
There was one part of the recording that said that Jeffrey said, you guys aren't even part of the state.
No, they're not.
And he says, yeah, we are. We're through the Municipal Association. It's through the Municipal Association.
Because they're an affiliate. Because they're an affiliate to the Municipal Association. So what that tells me is there's no rules when it comes to associations. If you exercise the power of an association, then you can do whatever you want, up to the point where you get you bring in some federal power on you, I guess. Is that what's really going on here? Is the private associations are out of control, these foreigners with these powers like that?
Yeah, under the Pope.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I see it too.
The Pope's right under, he's got full control of this thing. He's in violation of Chapter 12. And if he's in violation of Chapter 12 of the Law of Nations, all this is completely illegal. It doesn't matter what anybody did. They're not guilty because there's no one there to try them. This guy got unlawfully arrested, man. He really did. He got kidnapped by a private organization.
That's called man stealing.
Yes.
And the guy in the black robe, he is actually a sea rover.
Mm-hmm.
And a sea rover is a water pirate, really. That's exactly what happened. He met a pirate.
Yep. And the guy just went ahead and kidnapped him. He forced association, made him a slave, and now he's holding him for ransom.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on here.
And that translation is correct.
So, hopefully this helps some people. Today, at least you understand that you're not crazy. This is actually going on. And hopefully our explanation of this and where this all is coming from and how the country is set up give you at least a little peace by knowing the truth. Later, we got to figure out what we're going to do about it.
Well, obviously, the big giant town there of Wazine or whatever their name was, I'm sure they don't want to get caught into a human rights violation. Last I looked, they were 22,500,000. So they, as a city, they would be done.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody wants to send them this copy and tell them to unwind that whole thing. They might want to pay that guy they're pulling out of jail just so he don't sue them. They might consider doing business a different way and using some kind of power of law enforcement differently, power of a judge. They might want to let the district court do it for them because apparently they're not competent enough to do it. That's the way
That's
I
right.
see it.
That falls under the Sovereign Restoration Act, which means if we don't hear anything in a couple of days, that maybe let Jeffrey go on home, you might start getting regulated by this government. You're not going to like it.
Maybe the mother here can take and get them a copy and take it over to their city and say, you might want to play this, because if you don't take care of this problem, you're going to have papers coming your way and you're not going to like it.
Right, because the Warren family will be known as traitors and human rights violators for the rest of their days. And that man has a granddaughter.
Well, see, the problem I see with this, and you know, I used to do law enforcement before this country really got into socialist communist stuff, and we didn't do any of this stuff that way. And I can tell you that the police I saw in here today, they didn't question this one bit. You're no different in that court than a sheriff's bailer in another kind of court. And when you see violations, it's your duty to do something about it. And if you can't, won't, then you might consider turning some hamburgers and not being a cop.
Yeah, you're in on it.
You're in on it, and I'm going to tell you what happens here. If we make you a human rights violator, that's pretty big deal, especially in other countries. And when you go and get a job because you get fired from this one, and they can't get you insurance, well, what is a human rights violator policeman worth to most other employers? Absolutely nothing.
That's right.
They're not going to pay $1 million to get insurance on you.
They're going to put your name on the internet, and the first thing that's going to come up is so and so guilty of human rights violations.
So you know that's the whole problem with this. You guys need to, if these towns, cities, and governments aren't going to teach you this stuff, then maybe you need to start your own association. Maybe you need to get with us and other people like us that know these human rights violations and problems and issues. We will be glad to tell you these things. And you might even want to come over here and play these videos and look at the evidence that we put on here. But then again, if you're a bad boy and you don't want to do that, then we're not your kind of people.
Yep. And I think the President of the United States, any of them that are in there, might want to think about not protecting the Bank of New York Mellon and being basically paid off. Might want to change that a little bit. You really want to drain the swamp? You might want to do things right. Start looking at your own treasury, or start looking at this treasury. This treasury actually is the original treasury. So if you want any help, you might want to give us a call. I think that we've made our point tonight. And I want to thank you, everyone, for listening to the 96th broadcast of the T-roh Show. We are getting a bunch of hits on this show, so we do appreciate people spending their time, hour and 20 minutes a week to listen to us. It does not go unappreciated. And we have a new package with the a T-shirt and coffee cup combo. We found out that the delivery charge on that was friggin' horrendous. On the coffee cups, it's like $9 and $11.
No wonder the USPS is going bankrupt. They had $9 to send a coffee cup across a few states. Come on, like 12 or 14 ounces of weight, man. No, geez.
Yeah, so it was. So that's why we put a combo together to make it a little more affordable. So on the shipping, because it's just horrendous. So anyways, we do appreciate the support and people getting the cups and all that kind of thing. And we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.